Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing-related tweets, or you can subscribe to the channel and get notifications whenever a new video is uploaded. I've just uploaded the Anthony Joshua Kubrat Pulev post-fight review. Please check it out, and I look forward to your feedback and comments. Remember, you don't always have to agree with me. We can always have debates. As long as it's all polite, it's all good. That's what I enjoy doing, having the debates. Let's talk about another couple of fights on the undercard tonight. I didn't get to see Okolie Kuzman, unfortunately. I wasn't able to get back in time to see that. But I did see Hughie Fury and Lawrence Okolie. So let's talk about them. Hughie Fury is a guy that I believe has an abundance of talent. Okay, he's got a father who is, a top-class trainer. When I first got onto Twitter and I was talking boxing with people, Peter Fury was not sort of a famous guy. It was way before he got famous. He had less than 1,000 followers, maybe 700, 600, 700 followers, and we were talking boxing. I used to message him about boxing, and he always had the time, this guy. Me and there was another guy, Chris Bottom, a lovely guy. We would have conversations about boxing. And Chris actually went down there and met them and has become friends with them ever since, the Furies in general. But yeah, Peter Fury followed me back on Twitter, and we used to talk on Twitter every day about boxing. Now, this was a guy who, like I said, he's training up-and-coming prospects who I knew would go on to become world-level fighters. But there was never any arrogance there. There was never this thing of who's this guy I think he is, and he's trying to talk to me about boxing. He always gave us the time of day. Just the loveliest man. And always respectful. Honestly, I'm such a fan of Peter as a human being and as a trainer. I mean, look at the job he's doing with Savannah Marshall and all sorts, and the interview she gave this week on Talk Sport, discussing how he's helped change her life and helped her open up and become a more open person and stuff like that. So it's really, really impressive stuff on a human level as well as a boxing level. And I've always rooted for Hughie as a result as well. I've always wanted him to do really, really well. And he's always been matched very, very hard. He's never taken a back step from anyone. He's willing to fight anyone. The kid's a warrior. There's no quitting him. He's been the distance with Povetkin. He's fought Parker. He's fought who else has he fought? He fought Pulev. So he's getting in there, and he's only 25 now, 26, something like that. So he's got a massive future. I mean, think about it. Some of these heavyweights. I think Kubrat Pulev tonight was 39. So obviously you don't expect Hughie to keep going until that age if he's involved in these big fights to be at his peak. But in 5 years from now, he should still be fresh enough. Imagine how much he would have learned by then. We've already started to see adaptations. And what we saw tonight was his ability against a very, very durable man that came in shape, Marius Wach. He didn't come to just roll over. He came to win the fight. And he's been in there with some top fighters. He came and he was the aggressor. Hughie was the aggressor. There were some errors that he made. So we'll talk about some of the beautiful things he did and some of the errors, I guess, that he'd want to iron out going forward. But first and foremost, we know that Hughie can move. We know that he's got a nice jab. We know that he can vary the jab. We know that he's got good agile movement, upper body movement. So not just movement with his feet, he's got agile upper body movement. What we also saw tonight was an aggressive element of Hughie. His jab was lovely. His right hand really impressed me. It was very straight, shot like a piston. It was a well delivered, very orthodox, technically orthodox right hand that was landing and finding the target, and it hurt Wach a couple of times. A man who's very, very durable. He didn't do a wobbly dance that he was going to look like he was going to get out there or anything, but he took a step back. He stopped throwing punches. He covered up. That happened on more than one occasion. There were some moments where Hughie was jabbing and moving to his own left and changing the angle constantly, and he was bemusing Wach. I think that came in the second or third round, right at the beginning of the round. It was lovely stuff. But early on, I think he was too keen on making an impression, and he was holding his feet a little bit too much in the pocket. And while it's important for Hughie to, he's had some criticism in the past of not being aggressive enough. While it's important to be aggressive, and he showed a lot of that tonight, you still have to maintain the things that you're good at. And we know that Hughie is very, very good at moving, at jabbing, he's a smart sort of mover. Don't lose that. Don't give that up. Don't let a fighter, you're in the pocket and you throw your shots and then you stay there and then he lands on you. Why should he? Make him earn that. Get inside, land your shots, come out to the side. Just like he was doing at points. Make him earn the right to land a shot on you. So there were moments where he was doing a little bit too much of that, holding his feet in the pocket. I'd like to see him jab his way out of situations, because often he was throwing a combination and then he'd stop even then, even when he wouldn't stop and he'd step out, he would just pull out. I'd like to see him end the combination with a jab as he pulls out. You can do that and you can land the jab, and by doing that and pulling out, you're able to keep the guy off balance, and he's not necessarily able to follow you when you leave the pocket. So there are still areas there that he can work on. When he did see that, Mariusz Wach's a tough guy, he's not going anywhere, you saw him adapt and get on the back foot and start to box. So we saw both sides of Hughie Fury. Very, very impressive performance. I'm looking forward to seeing where he can go, because we know he's got the talent. He's got the talent. A lot of people question whether he's got the physicality. We know he's had health problems in the past and so on and so forth. Will his body allow him to produce not just the power, but to sustain himself throughout long fights? Because even tonight, he got another cut. Now, that's got nothing to do with a lack of ability. Sometimes, you've got that scar tissue in the eye. It's thin. It'll cut again. That's no fault of his own. But, it was a clash of heads today. But if it was a punch, with Pulev, I think it was a punch. If it opens up again in future and it's a punch, he could be in a situation where he's winning a fight and it gets stopped because of a cut. And he loses the fight. Kind of like what happened to Vitaly with Lennox Lewis, you could say. Obviously, Lewis earned that with a huge shot. But there's also an element of bad luck there too. So, can Hughie's body hold up enough for him to make a real run one day at the title? How far is he away from competing with the very elite? We know he lost to Pulev. Pulev was still, Pulev looked more athletic than he looked tonight against Anthony Joshua. He's 39 now. But like I said, Hughie also did get that cut early in the fight. He went for broke in the third round, way before Pulev was softened up. So, that was a tough situation. How far do you think Hughie can go? Can he be at world level and make a serious run at the title? Let me know what you think. I was very impressed with him tonight. Now we move on to Lawrence Okolie. Lawrence Okolie divides opinion, I think. And the majority of the people's opinion is that he's boring and they don't want to watch him fight. They talk about his name escaped me for a minute. They talk about the Matty Askin fight. They talk about Isaac Chamberlain, and they talk about how boring those fights were. He's a guy that loves to jab and throw the odd shot from range, and then he just holds. And they talk about him in that manner. He's not exciting. He has now got 5 knockouts in a row, and tonight he was exciting. He did go for it, and he looked really good, albeit against a late replacement who just didn't really look like he belonged anywhere near Lawrence Okolie, to be honest with you. But let me tell you something, right? It depends how you're judging Lawrence Okolie. If you're judging him in terms of him not entertaining you, you're just looking at it as a fan, I get it. But if you're judging Lawrence Okolie, only a purist, I think, will like the long range stuff. And then at close range, he does a lot of tying up. So there's not much fighting going on, in which case it makes it dull for a fan. I get that. But from the perspective of effectiveness, this guy is a nightmare. He's a nightmare. When he's not only long and rangy, he carries power in those shots. So just trying to come through that hell to get to him is very, very hard. You can't even try and lure him onto something. The way Canelo tries to use that upper body movement with a wide stance sometimes to get you reaching over to reach him, and then he'll drop back and counter you. You can't even do too much of that with him because he doesn't really commit to shots to take your head off. You look at him tonight. Go and watch tonight how quickly he was looking to get that jab or a right hand to the body, say, and then pull out quickly. It's literally, as he's throwing the shot, the priority in his mind is, how can I quickly get back out? And because he carries natural power, he can do that and still affect an opponent. He doesn't have to sit there and plant his feet. That makes him a dangerous guy because he's hard to time, he's hard to counter, he's tall and he's rangy. Now, I've said before, when you're tall and you're rangy, it is a disadvantage to fight up close against a smaller fighter because he has the full trajectory of rotation of his body when he's throwing a punch. You don't. The guy's on your chest. You're not going to produce as much power, whereas he can really swing for the fences with over the top right hands and stuff like that. So Okolie bypasses that in the way Vladimir Klitschko used to bypass that. Another fighter who many people thought was boring and dull. He holds. He ties you up. He's like an octopus. There's a skill to tying people up. There's a skill. I don't know his background. Has he studied wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling? Has he studied? I don't know. Is it just a natural thing? Whatever the case might be, a lot of Russian fighters that are very good on the inside at tying up study Sambo. Some of them do Greco-Roman. There's, everyone's got their different ways of doing it. Jiu-jitsu, whatever it might be. There are people that will train, boxers that will train another martial art to develop the clinch. Muay Thai, so on and so forth. whatever he's doing has worked for him, and it's hard to free your arms. So you have the nightmare of trying to earn that real estate, as Teddy Atlas says, and when you get inside, he doesn't let you work. There was a lot of talk, about how he's going to become the unified champion. Look, there are some top fighters in the cruiserweight division. Okay, you can't just dismiss those fighters. You can't. But stylistically, Maris Briedis, people will remember, long-time subscribers, when Maris Briedis was still relatively unknown, I was telling you he was going to become a superstar. I think he could not just become a star at cruiserweight, which he now has become, but he could become a very, very good heavyweight too. Make waves at heavyweight. He's since, he's knocked out Manuel Char. In fact, I think I did it when he knocked out Manuel Char. But the point is, I'm a huge fan of Briedis when he's on it. Sometimes he can tie up a little bit too much as well, but when he's on it, he's great. The question is, how effective would he be at closing in that 6'5", rangy 82.5 reach of Lawrence Okolie? He might be able to, but this guy's a nightmare. Don't for 1 minute think that's going to be an easy task for any human being. He released footage, and listen, when you release a 10-second clip, it doesn't mean anything. You might have got battered for the rest of the whole day. You don't know. But Okolie also did release a clip of him sparring Dillian Whyte. And you saw how fluid he looked and how Dillian Whyte was eating those shots. He might have been tired. He might have been tired, out of breath. He might have already been sparring and, out of shape. And Okolie might have been ready to get into a fight. So like I said, you can't look up too much into these things. When I say Okolie might have been ready to get into a fight, I mean, he might have had a fight lined up. So he was, 2 weeks out from a fight. And Dillian Whyte had just come in the gym after being out of shape for 2 months. I don't know. We don't know the timing. But the point is, Dillian Whyte wasn't thinking this guy's got feather fists. He had power that carried in sparring with headgear on against a big, strong heavyweight. So Lawrence Okolie's a nightmare. How do you deal with a guy? There are ways that in theory, you could try, but we've not seen anything tried and tested really work against this guy. So although he might be boring, he's effective. Let me know what you think about both Hughie Fury and Lawrence Okolie. What does the future hold for them? I understand. Talk to me about entertainment factor too, but also talk to me about ability. Where do you think they can go in terms of achievement? Thank you for watching, guys. Chat to you soon, and God bless.